Hello, artists. Today we are going to talk about tint and shade. When you mix a color with white, that is a tint. When you mix a color with black, that is called a shade. We're going to make a nighttime sky using white and blue and black. You might do blue like this, or you might have a different color, and that's okay. We're going to start with a blank white paper and a bunch of white on our paintbrush. We're going to make a circle with our white paint. And I'm going to make a pretty large circle because some of this is going to be mixed in with my blue, my light blue. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of blue on my brush around the edges of this and go around and around so that I have light blue around it. And I'm going to get a little bit more and go around the edges of the circle I just made. It's okay if you get a little bit of paint on the table. That will happen. As long as you're making these rounded brush strokes, it will match your moon. We're going to go around and around, and you can tell that as I'm adding a little bit more and more blue, it's starting to look darker than it was earlier. So I'm going to be careful not to leave any empty spots, but I'm blending with what I have. And I actually have two different kinds of blue here. I've got this blue that's a little bit darker. So I'm going to do a little bit more of this lighter blue. Then I'm going to layer this darker blue on top of it so that they can kind of start to mix. I want a really even gradation or an even fade from my light blue to my dark blue. Like right here, it looks kind of harsh. So I'm going to just really carefully brush over top of it to blend it together. And I want it to get darker and darker as I go. Okay? As I get into this darker and darker blue, I'm going to start to add a little bit of black so that this becomes an even darker blue, kind of like a navy, close to the edges. So I'm going to make this a little more even, and I'm going to go in with a little bit of black near the edges here, and then get my last little bit of my paper, what's left with black. I want most of my paper to have the color because I don't want a whole black paper. So I'm going to use what I have and just spread it to the very edge of my paper. I'm even going to put in a little bit more of this blue so I don't have a whole paper that's black, so it looks just like a really dark blue. It doesn't take very long, but you're going to blend it in while it's wet so that your brush can spread easily. Go all the way to the edge of your paper because after this will be something different, will be the next step. We don't want our whole paper to be black. We just want most of it to be blue and a little bit of white with our moon. Okay, so go all the way to the edge of your paper with your white, light blue, dark blue fading to black with whatever color it is you're using. All right, we have finished creating all this value in our background with our nighttime sky. Now we're going to talk about adding a tree onto this paper using any type of line. So here are some other student examples. This person made swirly lines for their tree. This person used zigzag lines for their tree. This person used horizontal lines. I like that different people chose different kinds of lines for their tree. I'm going to do a tree with lots of diagonal lines. So my tree is going to start off with one really long diagonal line, and then I'm going to add on more diagonal lines. Kind of like a real tree that has a lot of long reaching branches. I'm going to try to make some really large branches coming out first, and I think I'm going to thicken this up. And then after I do a lot of really large branches, I'll add in some smaller ones to fill the space a little bit more. So I feel like I've got as much big ones as I can, and remember, I'm just using diagonal lines. You can choose whatever kind of line you want to for your tree. because we've already kind of talked about our background. And now we're adding on our reaching branches with diagonal lines. It helps to use a small paintbrush and a little cup of paint. All right, I think I'm done with my tree. I used lots of diagonal lines in this one, but like I said, you can choose any kind of line you want to for your tree.